Alrighty, I don't feel like doing a great deal today. It's sort of warming up and, I don't know. Change the oil on the van. I've got to play around with that bloody breather hose bullshit later. But I've got to wait for me father to come back for that because he's got all the damn hose clamps. Or probably a good deal of them. Anyways, just want to talk a bit about the man and people with issues who have jobs and whatnot. Now, I found out a few different things about the auntie I had who was backwards. She was slow at some of her jobs, but there's one where she was actually sewing underwear back when we actually had tariffs. This is why you Americans might want to change your tune on tariffs if you don't like them, because, you know, it kept people who were unskilled or not exactly the pick of the crop when it come to employment in a job versus on welfare. And, you know, we had tariffs for shoes and clothing. And this auntie of mine, lo and behold, you know, she wasn't the brightest spark. She's, you know, the IQ was probably about bloody 70 or something, you know. Really wasn't that great. She was good at sewing up underwear to the point she was actually 20% faster than other people doing the same job. That's intriguing. Most people might be bored of that sort of work, but when you're sort of a bit simple-minded, it might not be as boring as it otherwise would be for someone with a higher IQ. You know, I once worked with a guy who was during my apprenticeship. He was 30, 31 years old, and I was still like fucking 21 or some shit. And, well, actually I was 20. And basically he turned around and said that he never believed that people with a mental problem were indeed worse than everybody else. He believed that it was they were bad at a whole bunch of everyday things, but there would be one, maybe two things that they were exceedingly good at. And, you know, you just sort of look at them in the day-to-day life and say, oh, they're backwards, but there was one thing that they would absolutely excel at beyond anybody else. And maybe with my auntie, that might have been sewing. There's another woman my mum knows who, well, both her sons are a little bit war, and she is herself. She was found to be driving a car from one point to another, as she had a license and all that, but she was going horrendously slow, just crawling along, like 20 k's an hour in an 80 zone or 100 zone or something like this. She was picked up by a cop suspecting that it might be somebody who's, you know, DUI, drunk driver, or something like that. And, you know, lo and behold, it was just her mental capacity was not great. But there's something strange, like she always, I used to remember it myself when my mum had talked to her. She's now in a care home, but she can actually come and go as she wants. But they've, you know, she's been put into care, although she does occasionally, you know, go into the city and do a bit of shopping, maybe every week or 2 weeks or something like that. And my mother went round and saw her the other day, and I can remember it, my mother mentioned it too. You'd ask her a question, and she'd sort of have to think about it for about 15 seconds or so, and then she'd answer. Maybe 15, sometimes even 20 seconds. You just sit there in a bit of a daze for a second, trying to sort of think about what you'd said before she'd answer. Strangely enough, my mother went round there, and that had disappeared. She's now in a home, but when you ask her a question, boom, responds straight away. Now, as I said, both the sons have got issues. One of them's, well, they're both. One, I think, is learning difficulties. Another one, you can just tell he's not all there. And the strange thing is, she's taken up painting, and her paintings are absolutely fucking brilliant. Painted a dog, and my mum reckons the eyes were so well done, you would have thought it was real. It was almost like a photograph. And like, her painting is absolutely phenomenal. So my mum said, well, did you get any, did you do any art classes or something like that? No, done nothing. No classes or any training whatsoever, but she can paint like you can take a photograph. From somebody who, has this big heavy jawline and sort of a big stocky woman who even looks like she's backwards, yet, and takes used to take a long time to answer, and all of a sudden, she can paint like nothing you've ever seen. And, apparently it's absolutely remarkable. She's winning prizes for this stuff, against a stack of other people, and she's doing phenomenally well with her art. But that's the thing, one thing where they excel. And I think looking at Elbus, I think there's, it's my auntie could never hold down a job for any more than 6 months maximum. She'd never actually make it to 6 months, or definitely not past 6 months. A lot of jobs, it was only a few months that she was at. And you sort of look at Elbus and, you could only survive a couple months there of that truck driving, but, it might be their mental capacity. They just can't hold down full-time work for ages. But what you sort of really need there is a job that he can do, and something that he's not sort of... He probably wouldn't be able to handle full-time, just as my auntie couldn't. But even if he sort of was like seasonal work, where he'd go 2, maybe 3 months, during the summer, and maybe, 6 weeks of something in the spring or whatever, and then do the whole summer with some sort of seasonal work. I really think he'd be a brilliant salesman. I've said it before, and I will say it again. I really think he'd be brilliant at just being at like the markets or something. I don't know how, if you've got that sort of stuff over in the United States, but we sort of we have markets in different areas here, and they sort of usually only hold them on the weekends. But you can go there, and there's this big area, and everybody's all set up with their vans and their fucking, they've got food vans and like fucking camper trailers, we call them caravans, all that sort of shit, generators, but they go and set up this whole big market, and sort of sell stuff there. And of course you get a lot of people, just a lot of families wandering around, and I reckon he'd be great just for selling some cheap fucking trinket or something, just some crapola, because he's got charisma, and that charisma could make him a lot of quick dollars on a bit of crappy stuff, really. And this is the thing, like, I really think, like, there's a job out there for him. You just got to find what it is, and expect that he's not really going to do it for any more than a few months, but make it something that he can sort of come back to intermittently, and the guy would be able to hold down a job. The long and short of it all is, the answer to not e-begging is having a frickin' job, and like in the words of Tony Mullins, it's not that we hate you, it's just that we hate what you do. Now, some people do hate Elbus, and, there's been times there where I thought, you mincing little bastard, and I've sort of, probably hated him. But at the end of the day, I don't really hold any ill will. And my agenda is to see e-beggars get a fucking job and stop lying and complaining and e-begging. That's really my agenda. Other people have different agendas. Other people just like annoying the shit out of people and stuff like that, whatever, you know. But you know, I really think, and I've said it before, even with a bit of help of Rosie and Drory, and thank God Drory stopped on the whole. You might have seen way back in the days of Drory trying to encourage Elbus and Narse to do a bit of insurance fraud and stuff like that. But I'm glad that Drory sort of tried to get him into truck driving, you know, and stuff. Because essentially speaking, if I come to him and tell me fuck off troll, but if it was Drory or Rosie or one of these other ones, they might have a chance there, you know, Narse or one of them, you know, they could possibly get him into that. And then, like, he could be back to making his own money. And I remember when he was truck driving there, which wasn't very long ago, he turned around and said, oh, well, you know, I don't, you know, you can donate if you want, but I don't really need your money because I'm earning my own now, sort of thing. And it was sort of, oh, amazing. The guy's not actually demanding money, you know. But yeah, there's a job for everyone. I really think there is. I really think that, you know, and we just got to get him in it, whatever that job may be.